Hello everyone. Today I wanted to share a little painting process for you all. This piece is inspired by the ending of summer and kind of ties in some of my feelings about summer as well. To start off, I want to talk a little bit about my inspirations for this piece. And one of them is an old song, one that I actually played in the wind ensemble that I was in back in high school, and it's called The Last Rose of Summer. There is also a poem that accompanies the song by Thomas Moore, and it's an old Irish piece, and the tune is set to, I believe, a much older Irish song. And for some reason, just the idea of it really spoke to me. I, for a long time, was really only familiar with the melody, but recently I looked at the poem and I thought that it really touched on something that is a little hard to put into words. I sort of feel like I've always had a very nostalgic but almost melancholy feeling in the summertime, and this poem kind of captures that essence. Now, luckily, because this song was written back in 1805, I can actually take a moment to read it to you. "'Tis the last rose of summer, left blooming alone. All her lovely companions are faded and gone. No flower of her kindred, no rosebud is nigh, to reflect back her blushes, or give sigh for sigh. I'll not leave thee, thou lone one, to pine on the stem. Since the lovely are sleeping, go sleep thou with them. Thus kindly I scatter thy leaves o'er the bed, where thy mates of the garden lie scentless and dead. So soon may I follow, when friendships decay, and from love's shining circle the gems drop away. When true hearts lie withered, and fond ones are flown, oh, who would inhabit this bleak world alone?" Now, it's been a long time since I've sat down to analyze poetry, and if I'm being honest, I didn't actually read the poem until this piece was finished, so it's really not based so much on the words, but more the feeling of the song and the poem as well. The other inspiration I took was from classical ballet. I was looking through Pinterest and just saw these really beautiful photos of ballerinas, and I had the idea to marry the two inspirations and paint a ballerina whose costume is inspired by a rose, especially wanting the tutu to be like a rose, not just made of rose petals, but the flower itself. And let me tell you, it was actually surprisingly difficult to find a good reference photo of a rose from the side rather than top down. But I did my best, and hopefully it still reads as a rose. And I wanted the other parts of, her bodice, to almost represent the stem and kind of the weird sleeve thing going on to be the leaves. I spent quite a bit of time planning this one. I really worked on the sketch beforehand and really wanted the anatomy to come across as graceful and not stiff. And honestly, I think I did a pretty good job. It was not easy to get it looking accurate, but I'm pretty pleased. And aside from preparing the sketch ahead of time, I did quite a bit of experimenting with colors, and another thing that I did was actually print the line work onto the watercolor paper. This is a trick I've started doing, and it's really helpful because sometimes even when tracing a sketch onto the paper, it never comes across quite the same, and it saves me a ton of extra time. The reason I was able to do this is because my printer has an ink that is pigment, not dye-based, and isn't water soluble, so I'm able to paint over it and the ink doesn't bleed. So I essentially lighten the sketch and print it out, and it gives me a really good blueprint. I also really wanted part of this piece to showcase a particular technique called negative painting, and this is where you paint around an object instead of painting the object. And it's really helpful when you want to paint, say, like layers of leaves, which is what I'm doing here. And I did have to mess around with it quite a bit because I didn't really want the leaves to look crisp. I almost wanted them to look sort of fuzzy or not in focus. That way they don't draw away too much from the figure, but they're still readable as leaves. Negative painting usually involves multiple layers, which you can kind of see here, but once the first layer dries, you sort of paint over with a darker color to carve out the shapes that you want. And I definitely had to mess around with it quite a bit to get the effect that I wanted, and later I'll go in and make a few adjustments to get across my vision. It was definitely a bit of a difficult balance to make, to where you could see the background, but it also not appear to be too busy. Something else I wanted to mention is that I am painting a little bit outside of the lines, especially the frame and outside of the frame. And that is because later I'm going to be painting over the entire background in black, and all of that other paint is going to be completely covered. This is also the first piece that I've sat down to film in quite a while. I took the summer off from sharing artwork online and really wasn't active here on YouTube or really any social media for several reasons. Some of it was wanting to try and reconnect to my artwork outside of feeling the need to share it, and sort of think about where I want to take things as far as sharing my art goes. And I also wanted to take time to enjoy summer and enjoy some of the plans I had without feeling obligated to make content, I guess. And I think more and more I want these videos to be kind of artistic in their own way. Probably doing less vlogs and more sharing the process of each piece, because it just gives me a little more time to explore and really make the artwork the focus of this channel. But we'll see how that all shakes out. That's just kind of how I'm feeling at the moment. I just want to find a way to balance sharing the work, having a job outside of this, and also still enjoying it as a hobby. If I'm not making a living off of it, I want to continue to find joy in it and not feel like it's a slog or like it's work that I have to do. And this painting really was a great way to get back into things. I was really excited to work on this piece, and I actually never felt a sense of doubt while painting. a lot of the time I am a little bit stressed while painting, kind of out of fear to not mess up, and kind of a lack of confidence in my skills. But as I've been practicing, and because I really prepared for this piece, I didn't feel that so much. And because of all the preparation, the actual painting portion didn't take terribly long. I also think it's the first time I've put more of myself in a piece in a while. Not just because my inspiration was connected to a song I played back in high school band, but because a lot of it kind of carries across this kind of strange emotion that I have a hard time describing, that I have felt pretty much every summer since becoming an adult. Almost this sense of mourning childhood in a way, mourning what summers used to be, and kind of a strange nostalgia. I still feel times where I really enjoy summer, but it's just a strange emotion, and I wanted to find a way to put that down on paper. This is definitely something that I would really like to explore more, and strangely enough, not something that I really dived into in the past. I would usually paint concepts that I found interesting, or maybe find my inspiration elsewhere, but I didn't often connect pieces of my past and current emotions to come up with a piece. And really, it was all these different inspirations floating around and eventually forming into one idea. Now, to end my rambling, I would also love to hear from you. I'm curious if you have similar feelings about the summertime, and also if you like this form of video. I feel like I see less videos of people just creating art these days, and there's a lot more on like the business end and a lot more vlogging, but not as much of people just sitting down to paint. And some of that could just be the art spheres that I'm in, but I'm very curious what you would like to see and what you think about this type of content. And with that, I'm going to let you enjoy the rest of the process, and I will jump back in at the end. And here's the final piece. I'm really quite pleased with how it turned out, and I really hope that you like it too. Please let me know what you think about this video format and also anything else you'd like to see from me. And with that, I will see you all next time.